IREN stock wrapped up the week with another explosive session on Friday, gaining $7.04, or roughly 12.6%, to close at $62.90 per share. Even after the bell, the stock tacked on another 41 cents in the aftermarket. This move caps off an incredible two-day turnaround that's caught traders' attention across the AI infrastructure and crypto mining sectors. So what's fueling this renewed strength? Why has IREN suddenly flipped from one of the week's biggest decliners to one of its strongest performers? And is this just a momentum-driven short squeeze, or the start of a genuine new uptrend heading into November? Let's break it down. First, context matters. Early in the week, IREN had been hammered. The stock lost roughly a quarter of its value in just a few days after crypto markets were hit by massive leveraged liquidations following the Trump administration's announcement of 100% tariffs on Chinese goods. That move wiped out more than $19 billion in crypto positions and sent shockwaves through anything tied to Bitcoin. For IREN, which still earns a substantial portion of its revenue from crypto mining, that meant heavy selling. Add to that a mix of analyst downgrades, insider selling, and a broader market rotation away from high beta growth names, and you had a recipe for panic. But by Thursday, sentiment started to flip. Bitcoin found a footing. Yields pulled back slightly, and traders began to reassess whether the earlier sell-off had simply gone too far. Short interest in IREN was hovering around 14% of the float, a significant amount of pressure on the downside. Once the stock bounced back through the mid-50s, the shorts began to cover, and momentum buyers quickly stepped in. That recovery carried through into Friday's session, and then some. So what's specifically driving this latest surge? There are several key factors in play, both technical and fundamental. Number one, the market is increasingly treating IREN as an AI infrastructure play, not just a crypto miner. Several financial outlets, including Benzinga and Investors Business Daily, ran features this week highlighting IREN's transformation into a hybrid AI utility. One article even referred to IREN and Nebius as the top AI utility picks heading into the next wave of industrial AI buildouts. That kind of framing changes everything. It broadens IREN's potential investor base from niche crypto speculators to mainstream technology and infrastructure investors, the same kind of investors who chase companies like Supermicro or CoreWeave. Number two, the stock's technical picture looks dramatically better. Friday's breakout took IREN cleanly above the $59 to $60 resistance band that had capped its trading for several weeks. Volume was high, confirming conviction behind the move. When a stock breaks out with strong volume after a prolonged correction, it tends to attract algorithmic and discretionary traders alike. Number three, the fundamental narrative is back in focus. IREN's pivot toward high-performance computing and AI cloud services is starting to resonate. The company recently expanded its GPU fleet to around 23,000 units, up from less than 2,000 previously, and is targeting more than $500 million in annualized recurring revenue from its AI cloud business by 2026. That's a massive shift in scale and direction. The company also raised $1 billion through a convertible note offering earlier this year to fund those data center and liquid cooling expansions. Initially, investors worried about dilution. But as the AI boom continues to drive insatiable demand for compute capacity, that capital raise now looks more like a strategic advantage than a risk. It gives IREN the flexibility to move quickly while competitors are still scrambling for funding. In other words, investors are beginning to see IREN not as a struggling miner but as a company with infrastructure optionality. It can mine Bitcoin when profitable, rent out GPUs when demand spikes, and build cloud-based recurring revenue streams that stabilize its business over time. Another subtle factor helping the stock, macro sentiment has improved slightly. Bond yields have eased off their highs, and risk appetite is returning. When markets shift from fear to greed, high volatility names like IREN often move first and fastest. Now, let's talk about timing. We're only about 2 weeks away from IREN's next earnings release, scheduled for November 6th. That upcoming catalyst is already in traders' crosshairs. If the company confirms progress toward its AI cloud revenue goals or announces new enterprise partnerships, it could provide the validation bulls are waiting for. Conversely, if the numbers disappoint or guidance falls short, it could trigger another wave of profit-taking. That's why this rally matters so much. It's happening right before a potential turning point in the company's narrative, and that's fueling speculation that something bigger might be on the horizon. Beyond that, IREN's technical and sentiment setup looks ideal for a short squeeze. After weeks of heavy bearish positioning, A double-digit percentage move like this one forces momentum traders to reassess. If short interest remains elevated, and if the stock can hold above $60, we could see another leg higher simply from force covering. Let's also acknowledge the optics here. Just last week, investors were wondering if IREN's AI pivot was oversold hype. Now, the same pivot is being hailed as visionary. That's how fast sentiment flips in this kind of market. Friday's move wasn't just a small technical bounce, it was a statement. It said that despite macro noise, despite crypto volatility, and despite skepticism about execution, investors are willing to bet that IREN's hybrid model can work. So what should investors be watching next? First, key price levels. $65 is the next technical resistance zone. If the stock can push through that level with volume, it opens the door to a potential run toward the low 70s. Support now sits around 57 to 58, the range that triggered Thursday's breakout. Second, industry signals. Watch how peer stocks like Nebius, BitDeer, and CleanSpark trade early next week. If those names follow IREN's lead, it will confirm that the rally isn't isolated. If they lag or reverse, it could suggest IREN's move is more company-specific, perhaps driven by upcoming news. Third, macro conditions. The market's tone remains fragile. Any resurgence of inflation fears or yield spikes could reintroduce volatility across speculative growth names. But for now, the wind is at IREN's back. Let's also touch on the crypto connection. Bitcoin hasn't rallied dramatically, but it's stabilized, and that's enough. Stability in Bitcoin prices provides breathing room for miners and hybrid companies like IREN. The fact that IREN is rallying even without a big crypto move tells you that investors are finally valuing it for more than its hash rate. And then there's the AI angle, which keeps expanding. Reports this week suggested that enterprise demand for GPU capacity continues to outpace supply, and companies with existing data center footprints are in prime position to capitalize. IREN fits squarely into that theme. Its access to low-cost renewable power, large-scale infrastructure, and newly acquired GPU inventory makes it a credible player in the AI compute arms race. All of this helps explain why, heading into the weekend, IREN is back on traders' watch lists. The stock has regained technical strength, rediscovered narrative momentum, and re-entered the conversation around AI infrastructure leaders. Still, the question remains, is this the start of a sustainable move, or just another flash rally in a volatile name? The bullish case argues that this is the early stage of a breakout that could carry through earnings and into the end of the year. The bearish case says we've seen this pattern before, a big short covering bounce, followed by consolidation or another fade when the news cycle cools. The truth probably lies somewhere in between. Friday's rally is clearly significant, but sustainability will depend on execution and follow-through. Investors will want to see IREN continue expanding its AI cloud business, maintaining profitability in mining, and managing capital efficiently. If those boxes get ticked, this could mark the start of a new chapter. For now, though, the market seems willing to give IREN the benefit of the doubt. The company's positioning, straddling both the AI revolution and the digital asset economy, makes it a uniquely leveraged bet on two of the most powerful trends of this decade. So, as we head into the weekend, here's the takeaway. IREN isn't just bouncing because Bitcoin steadied or shorts got squeezed. It's bouncing because investors are starting to believe again, in the infrastructure story, in the growth potential, and in the idea that this company might actually deliver on its ambitious transformation. Heading into next week, watch those price levels, watch sector peers, and keep an eye out for early hints ahead of the November earnings release. If momentum continues, we could be witnessing the early stages of IREN's next big run. But as always, volatility cuts both ways. The same forces that drove the stock up this week can reverse just as quickly. Traders will want to stay disciplined, and investors will need to stay focused on fundamentals. Still, after a week that began with panic and ends with optimism, one thing is clear: IREN is back in the spotlight. Whether this becomes the start of a sustained uptrend or another sharp detour on a volatile road, one thing's certain: this story is far from over.